You are listening to the Codependent Millennial Podcast with Sophie Shiloh, Episode 11, Feeling Difficult Feelings. This episode is part of my series on the 7 essential steps to moving beyond codependency. To receive the full guide for free, along with all of the worksheets and written guidance, visit codependentmillennial.com/essential. Click the button that says Get the Guide and sign up there. Today we're talking all about how to recognize, feel, and process your emotions, especially the challenging, painful ones. I'm not going to teach you how to make them go away. I'm not going to teach you how to mask them. I'm not going to teach you how to cope with them, quote unquote, cope with them. I'm not going to teach you how to distract away from them or how to just never come up against them, because that's not the point. And I want to add here that if anyone you're working with on emotional well-being is trying to teach you these things, like how to cope, how to get away from these negative emotions, how to mask them or distract away from them, please stop working with them. Like, I really want you to understand that anyone trying to teach you those things is not actually showing you how to live an emotionally robust, self-sufficient life. And here's why. You trying to avoid or get out of a feeling leads you to spinning within it, indulging in it, not learning from it, not growing from it. Indulging in painful emotions is not the same thing as feeling and processing them. There's a huge difference there, and I want to teach you this difference in this episode. So, indulging in emotions, rolling around in, sort of in the mud of an emotion instead of just walking through the mud and then stepping back onto the grass on the other side and continuing your hike, keeps you stuck in the same emotional patterns until you finally do get to the point where you acknowledge those feelings, until you learn what it is that they're here to teach you, until you allow them to move on when they're ready to, not before they're ready to. And then you're ready at some point in the future to welcome those feelings back when they cycle back around. That's just what it's like living here on Earth, where we go through cycles of emotions, not just like steps on a ladder to like the point where you're only feeling positive emotions all the time. That doesn't exist. It's definitely a fallacy that we're like sold into, especially in some wellness self-help circles, but that's not how humanity works. Sorry. But also not sorry. I see so many people try to just push emotions aside with all kinds of distractions, coping techniques, all of that kind of stuff, when simply feeling the feeling and moving on from there would get you into a new emotional state so much more quickly. Like, people are always trying to get into a more positive emotional state. They cannot sit with the discomfort of whatever painful emotion they're experiencing. But what suffering are you putting yourself through by refusing to process that emotion that's coming up for you? How much pain are you causing yourself by resisting whatever painful emotion is in your emotional space right now? I would argue that by you trying to ignore or resist a negative emotion, you're actually prolonging your suffering by not processing through the feeling. Even just getting to a place where you feel more peace around feeling grief or anguish or anger or sadness, even getting to a place where you just feel more peace about feeling that negative emotion will feel better than being in a place of resistance towards it, than wishing it didn't exist, than wishing it would go away quicker. You can provide yourself so much peace, so much comfort, and the ability to learn from and move past that feeling if you open up to it. So how does all of this relate to codependency? When we're stuck in codependent ways of being and thinking, we are constantly trying to control situations and people outside of us to be a very specific certain way that we think is the right way, the only way. We try to control things outside of us so that we can feel a certain feeling that we think is unavailable to us without these quote unquote ideal conditions. We think, well, I can't feel the way I want to feel until this specific thing happens or until this person acts the way I want them to. If these conditions aren't met, then I am incapable of accessing that feeling that I want to feel. And this is so frustrating. This is like, an eternal struggle for us, because the conditions upon which we're placing our emotional well-being are not conditions that we have any control over. External events, other people, no control. This leaves us powerless to the actions of others, which we can never control, and perpetuates the codependent cycle of us not taking responsibility over our own emotional lives. In codependency, we also think that the trouble is in the negative feelings that we experience. So we then try to avoid these feelings and end up harming ourselves and keeping ourselves stunted in the process. The truth is that the trouble only comes when we try to deny, resist, and avoid those emotions, which I'll elaborate on in just a minute. When you develop the skill of recognizing, feeling, and processing your emotions, you never shy away from an experience. You never try to avoid your life. You're simply living boldly, bravely, knowing that you absolutely have the capacity to feel, handle, and process any emotion that may come up. This is true power. This is freedom. This enables you to engage fully in your life instead of avoiding any scenario in which you may encounter a negative emotion that you haven't learned how to handle, or that you're telling yourself you don't have the capacity to handle. This also enables you to experience the full range of human emotions, both painful and pleasurable, without needing to rely on coping mechanisms or distractions like TV, work, drugs, alcohol, sex, shopping, whatever, to try and numb away from the reality of your emotional experience. This is everything, you guys. I love you so much, and I want you to hear every word I'm saying. Rewind a couple of minutes if any of this sort of sounded unclear, because this is the secret to your life. If you developed the skill of feeling and processing painful emotions, there would be no need for the self-destructive coping mechanisms you may have been seeking to dull your life to a more bearable state. Remember, our emotions are a precious resource that we can all tap into. They're here to guide us. They're here to teach us. They're always here to share a message with us, to help us gain deeper awareness of ourselves. And when we're numbing away from them, when we're distracting away from them, when we're pushing them away, we're losing out on that experience to go deeper. We're losing out on the experience to develop a more connected relationship with our intuition. And that is the biggest shame of all. Okay, so how do you actually handle really painful emotions, like the ones that feel like they will kill you or swallow you whole? Literally, clients come to me with this constantly. We are always talking about how to handle emotions that they think will kill them. What they actually say is, quote, "I feel like this emotion will kill me." So first, I do need to point out to you guys that this is a thought, not a feeling. I feel like this emotion will kill me. That's not a feeling. That's a thought. What you mean to say is, I have a thought that this emotion will kill me. You can think an emotion will kill you, but you're always wrong there. Your emotions have no control over your actions ever. Your prefrontal cortex, the advanced, highly evolved human part of your mammalian brain, is what has control over your actions, period, not your emotions. So for me, as someone who's wrestled with many difficult emotions, as well as many thoughts that said, you know what, you should really just kill yourself right now. That really does seem to be the best course of action here. This pain will probably never end, so I feel like you're better off just not being alive right now. As someone who's wrestled with these thoughts, I can tell you that you can learn to observe these thoughts and also to observe the painful emotions that accompany them without reacting to them. That's the biggest part of all of this. None of it warrants reaction. Sometimes that looks like you lying face down on the fucking floor while you just let your emotions wash over you. Sometimes it looks like crying 14 times a day or 15 or 16 times a day. Been there. Sometimes it looks like holding it together while you work and letting it all out by screaming into a pillow at 5:01 p.m. Sometimes it looks like silence. But it never has to look like breaking something or hurting yourself or yelling at other people or drinking. Sometimes we do those things, but only when we're resisting, not actually allowing the emotions to be in our space. Another observation technique is to describe the physical sensations that the emotion is creating in your body. Is it tight, cold, hot, sharp, twisting, pulling, burning, tearing, tingly, numb? What does this emotion feel like in your body? I remember when I first started to acknowledge and process my shame, which was one of the most painful emotions I ever processed in my life. And, I'm still processing through it. My coach asked me to describe it. I had absolutely no idea what she meant. And I was actually really angry and extremely annoyed at the question. I didn't understand it. I thought it was stupid. I hated it. But she didn't move on. And I was kind of forced to answer if I wanted the session to continue. So I was like, okay, whatever, fine, I'll answer. She told me to describe the shame. I said it was numb and cold and tight. And once I started to describe that, I actually got a vision of it. I could tap into what it looked like in my mind. It was nebulous and black, like the kind of black that is so empty that it's like deeper than black, if that makes sense. I spent my entire life running from looking my shame in the face, but once I did, I was able to engage with it in a way that helped set me free from it. Magical, right? This process saved my life. This exercise that I was so annoyed by, so angered by, saved my life. This is an example of some of the work I do with my clients now, and I just can't imagine a more beautiful full cycle story than that. I'm just so grateful that I didn't quit at that question, that I answered the question, and that I learned to recognize, feel, and process my painful emotions. I have a worksheet about processing your painful emotions that I'm happy to send to you. It's a great worksheet. If you want it, you can just email me, sophie@codependentmillennial.com, and I'll send it to you. So today, I just want to invite you to take 60 seconds, just take 1 minute out of your day to take a few deep breaths and to feel just one feeling that you've been avoiding. Don't eat, don't listen to an audiobook or music, don't clean or work or exercise, just sit. You can close your eyes if you want to. For 60 seconds, breathe and feel that emotion. Allow it to be in your body without you trying to fight against it. If you want to, you can take some notes on paper or on your phone of what this experience was like for you, and maybe try it again the next day. 60 seconds. It's nothing to be afraid of. This exercise will benefit you if you choose to engage with it. If you'd like 30 minutes of free one-on-one guidance from me around processing any painful emotions that you've been afraid of feeling, just go to codependentmillennial.com/work with me to see if there's a session available this week. In the next episode, we're going to talk all about how to use your intuition to start making your own decisions so that you can become the powerful, decisive, self-assured person you've always wanted to be. Until then, have a gorgeous day. If you liked what you heard in this episode, join me over on Instagram at Codependent Millennial for more tips on how to move beyond codependency and build a life you truly love.